Now you got to remember that little temple that I told you had an opening by a foot by not even a foot wide by a foot tall. Three kids were in there, and they had to sit with their legs up to their chest just to sit in there. They couldn't lay down. They couldn't stand up. They couldn't do nothing. They were in that position the whole time they were in there. Wow. That's how tiny it was.
Wow.
And so anyhow, we signed him into the orphanage. And because we knew the Australian girl that taught English for the American kids and other students at a school there, and because we had brought him there, they said, well, they'd send him to that school 2 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, so he could learn English.
Okay.
And we thought, wow, that's great. No problem there. And so we got him. We signed him in the orphanage. Now he seemed happy. Like I said, he was clean. We cured his impetigo, and he had nice, clean clothes, and he seemed happy. And so anyway, after that, we just hung around Kathmandu a while. And my friend, she was ready to go to Australia. She was going to fly. I was going to go overland. And her mother had bought her a movie camera before she started her trip. And she'd never used it all the time we were traveling. She had never used it. It was down in the bottom of her pack, and that's where it stayed.
Uh-huh.
So she says, let's go to the monkey temple, and I'll film you feeding the monkeys. And then I'm going to send the camera home. And we sent a bunch of stuff home back to San Francisco. And okay. So we head out to the monkey temple. And at the bottom, there was vendors there, and they sold peanuts and different things, rice, and you could carry it up there and feed the monkeys. So I get a bag of peanuts, and we go up to the top of the temple there where all the monkeys were. And of course, as soon as they see you with that bag, they know what it is.
Uh-huh.
And so, like a big dummy, they all line up. The alpha male right in front of me, all the males on each side of him in a row, probably at least 20 of them, 20 males, 10 on each side of him. And then the females, the same thing in the next row behind them. And then the little ones in the back. So I just says, well, I ain't feeding these big dummies. I'm going to throw a peanut to the little ones in the back. Well, as soon as I threw it, the monkey, if you can imagine, making fists with your hands and bending you at the elbow, and then he would shake and he'd go, he'd grunt. And so I throws another one to the back, to the little ones in the back. Of course, they'd chase it and go eat it. Well, he gave a little harder grunt and shake. And so I throw
as if to tell you that comes to me, not to them.
Yeah, he's supposed to get first.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was giving it to the little one. He wouldn't go chase them and get it from him. Well, when I threw the third one, that was it. He was pissed. And he come at me, and all the others is what happened. I clenched my fist. I don't know. I had some peanuts in my hand, and I clenched my fist. And when I looked down, my fist was in that monkey's mouth. His 2 big canines were on the top of my index finger, and his bottom canines were on my little finger on the bottom. And he couldn't bite me because my whole fist was in his mouth. Well, the others, they attacked me. They were jumping off my shoulders, my back, but they were just nipping. They weren't biting. They were just nipping me, just a quick nip, and off they go. And they were hitting me from every direction and back and front. And well, the peanuts scattered all over the thing. Well, then he let go. I got my fist out of his mouth, and they all went after all the peanuts.
So they were basically telling you that you weren't following protocol.
Exactly. I was a big dummy. So anyway, because he had broke the skin on my hand, and I knew a lot of people would get rabies shots every day in Kathmandu. Mm-hmm. So I went to the American consulate and I told them what happened. And they said, yeah, you probably better go get your rabies shots. because you never know. And then I get, oh my God, because when I got out of the military and lived in Chicago, I lived next to Midway Airport, southwest side of Chicago.
Yes.
A young boy got bit by a cat. And the police, with them great big speakers on the old black and white patrol cars with them huge big speakers, one facing forward, they would drive through that area all day long, telling you to look for this cat because that boy had to take these terrible, painful rabies shots. This is what I had in my head now when they say you got to take rabies shots. So I go the first day that I have to go to the hospital. I go in there and boy, I'm scared. I'm sweating. I'm really messed up over this deal. You know, what a dummy. And I sit down and there's about 25 to 30 people every day getting rabies shots in the hospital there at Kathmandu.
From being bit by monkeys or just from?
Bit by monkeys and dogs.
Really? Okay, because you said there were a lot of feral dogs around too.
Right.
Okay.
So I sit down, and finally here comes the little Nepalese doctor in, all in white, little cap, white shirt, pants. He sits down on a little stool, and the kids fight, run up there fighting, elbowing each other, pushing, shoving to get their shot first. I go, what in the hell is wrong with this picture here?
Yeah.
This is supposed to be terrible, painful, and they're fighting to get in line to get their shot first. Well, it's what he would do. He would take the cotton ball and put alcohol on it, and he'd hand it to them. So after he gave them the shot, you give it on each side of the belly button.
Yeah.
One day on one side, the next day on the other side. He'd give them the cotton ball so they could rub it after he, and that was something to him. That was something to fight over to get in line first.
Because they wanted the cotton ball.
Well, they get to rub their tummy with that cotton ball
right.
with the alcohol on it.
Uh-huh.
So I go up there and I get my shot and I said, well, that ain't bad. Didn't have no problem. Didn't feel nothing. Went and got my shot the next day and same thing. I said, well, what is this story? Why are they telling people this is so painful? And I got the third shot. I found out what pain was like. If you take a rope and you start twisting it, and it'll make a knot.
Okay.
And you keep twisting it, it'll make another knot.
Sure.
And another knot. That's what right across my stomach, at the line of the belly button, that it felt like your whole stomach was tied in these knots, and you walk bent over, and I mean you hurt. So then my fourth shot, well, first of all, they told me I only needed to take 7 because they didn't think, the monkey didn't attack me just for attacking me. It was because of what I did.
So based on his behavior, they suspected he didn't have rabies.
Right. Okay. But they said, you better take the shots, but you only need 7. Everybody else had to take 14 shots. Mm-hmm. Boy, was I glad to hear that. So anyway, the 4th shot then, I walked by that front of that hospital, I think 3-4 times. I didn't want to go in there. I didn't want to take that shot. So I sit down in front of the doctor. Finally, I go in there and I sit down in front of the doc, and he would poke you in the stomach with his finger, with his forefinger. He'd just poke you. And he could tell that I was just tighter than whatever.
Right.
My muscles were drawn up tight. And he took the syringe and pointed it up over my shoulder and shot a little bit in the air over my shoulder. I went, whew, and he had me. I mean, he had me right where it was supposed to be that quick. Uh-huh. He was good. That's all he did, I guess, was
give shots. Yeah.
And so I had, then I didn't have a reaction. I had out of the 7 shots, I had two real bad reactions.
So I guess you never did figure if you never did determine whether or not the monkey had rabies or not, because this was just precautionary, correct?
This is precautionary. Yeah, they weren't going to go up there and do nothing. They weren't going to go up there and kill the monkeys or do anything because they're sacred. I mean, that was out of the question. But anyway, they said had he had rabies, had I got rabies, them 7 shots, I would know that something was happening. and then I could deal with it after that.
You could get the remaining
so,
7 then, perhaps.
Right.
Okay.
And so I had no trouble. But that was the deal. Every day, them kids would run up there and fight to be in line first. It's amazing. Also, this just goes to show you how different kids are in parts of the world. I seen a little girl, because nobody wore shoes. All the kids were barefoot. The grown-ups, too, mostly were all barefoot, except in the city. And I seen this young girl, maybe 6, 7 years old. She was running, and she stepped on a piece of glass and cut the whole side of her big toe. Mm-hmm. I mean, laid it open.
Yeah.
He did, and it's pouring blood. She just reaches down there, flips the skin back over the what was laid open, and takes her finger and rubs the blood all around and goes off playing.
Wow.
Just like nothing happened. Where kids here, they fall down and skin themselves and they cry and scream and carry on.
I guess compared to the life of a child in the West, that it was no big deal to them because they had been through so much hardship daily, hourly.
Another thing that surprised me was how little kids had to take care of their little brothers and sisters. There was a young girl. She used to come from that street at Durbar Square and all the way to if you go to the right of Durbar Square, right down that, it's a Naya Sadak Road. It goes into a green field. Every day, and I don't know where she had come from. I never ever seen her come out. She would have about 1,000 ducks, like a 20-foot bamboo pole, and a little baby on her back, a little tiny baby, and then her food and stuff, and the baby's food. And she would herd them ducks all the way down that main road into that green field and take care of them all day long.
Amazing.
And she was probably 10 years old.
The amount of responsibility that they have was incredible.
It's just, I mean, unbelievable.
Well, now, let me ask you a question. I assume you didn't go back to the monkey temple then.
Oh, yeah.
You did? But you didn't feed the monkeys.
Yeah, there was no problem. I mean, I knew I goofed up and I was just an idiot, but
okay.
But that was no problem. Yeah, I went back to that monkey temple a lot of times.
So at this point, Gothe the Beggar Boy is in the orphanage then, correct?
He's in the orphanage. My friend, she's, the international airport opens up in 69 in Kathmandu. Well, the first day, the headlines in the Western paper was not the first plane landed, but how they had then showed them chasing the cows off of the runway so that the plane could land.
Now, where was the airport relative to Durbar Square?
Okay, you have to go all the way to the east and south a little bit. Okay, where? But it's southeast of Kathmandu.
Okay,
there it is. It's Tiburon International Airport.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you see it? It's quite a ways out there to the west, to the east, and a little bit south.
I do see it. Yes, it's on the very outskirts of the city.
Yes,
it's quite a ways.
Yes, quite a ways.
Okay.
And anyway, so she flies out, and I spent a few more days in Kathmandu, and then I left Nepal and headed overland. Was going to Australia, but I only went to Bali, and she didn't like it. Anyway, then in 1972, we come back, which is almost 3 years later to the day.
You came back to Kathmandu.
To Kathmandu
with your lady friend or by yourself?
Yeah, oh yes, she flew back out of Australia to Bali, and then she flew to Singapore, and then I come back overland all the way through Indonesia and met her in Singapore, and then we worked our way Well, we went a bunch of places, but then we made it back to 3 years later. We made it back to Kathmandu.
Okay.
So after we get